Welcome into 49ers Access. My name is Sterling Bennett, and the San Francisco 49ers have struck gold once again on day 3 of free agency, this time via a trade for Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle Osa Odighizuwa in exchange for a third-round draft pick. Going to get into what he brings to this Niners defense, how he changes their 2026 draft strategy, and where he ranks and finishes amongst recent Niners defensive players when it comes to pressures, sacks, and production. It may surprise you, but it may equally not shock you, if that makes sense. I'll explain in a few. We'll also get into the future of Brandon Aiyuk because there's one more twist and turn around the corner on the day the new league year begins. We'll also get into who San Francisco brought back on day 3 and who they decided to let walk on day 3 of free agency. And we'll take a look ahead to the rest of the week, who's out there to sign and who can San Francisco target next. With all that in mind, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the show. Welcome in. Hope you're enjoying day 3 of free agency, and I hope we can all collectively say, John Lynch, you are locked in thus far. While it may not be an overly exciting free agency period, you see teams like the Commanders, like the Patriots, like the Seahawks, the Chiefs, the Rams have all had action in some capacity, and many of them have maybe had more fun as a fan base than Niner fans have. But you get Mike Evans, you get a couple of guys on the low end, Vidarian Low, you get a couple of linemen involved here, and now you make your big splash, your big move for Osa Odighizuwa. And I think it's important to point out what they traded away for a player like him, because we've known the San Francisco 49ers walked into free agency and the offseason needing a 3-tech defensive tackle. And they couldn't go back to Kalia Davis and Jordan Elliott for another year. There just is low upside involved. While they're durable, they just aren't great players. You have Collins in place. You have West in place. Collins more of that run defending, starting defensive tackle base player, whereas you get a 3-tech involved that can be a pass rusher. It makes you more dynamic as a defensive line next to Bosa, next to Michael, with Bryce Huff involved in some capacity. And it seemed like they really pushed hard, yet were outbid for John Franklin Myers. They'd bid $20 million per year. The Titans said, we'll give you $21 million per year. San Francisco sat back and said, okay, that was our go-to A option to not lose a draft pick. Let's go to option B. That is Osa Odighizuwa. Now, don't get it wrong here. Just because he is the option B doesn't mean it's a massive step down of what John Franklin Myers brings to the table. In fact, in some ways, he's better than John Franklin Myers, and we'll get into that too as the show goes on. But trading away the 92nd overall draft pick in the 3rd round for a player like Osa Odighizuwa, who was drafted at pick 75 by the Cowboys a couple years ago, is great value for a team that needs that 3-tech in a market that, in free agency, not many guys out there. The guys that were good and capable are off the board. In the draft, while there are some players towards the top 15, top 20 prospects, they're going to be gone by pick 27, leaving you with guys like Lee Hunter and guys amongst that kind of tier of player, the kind of B and C tier defensive tackles that might be good at the NFL level, but aren't worthy of pick 27 overall in the draft. This, to me, is the right pivot. The Niners have Nick Bosa if he's healthy. They have Michael if he's healthy. They have Bryce Huff if they retain him. I think they will now, as we have not seen them cut him this early in the free agency. Maybe it changes, but I think he's along for the ride, at least for one more season. That said, the big hole on the defensive line wasn't an edge rusher. It wasn't a run stuffer. It was, can we get a 3-tech pass rushing interior monster next to Collins and Bosa and Michael? And I think they got that today for a really great value. Again, you're not finding guys like Odighizuwa in round 3, at least not guys that are this refined and have this much production on their resume. You may get more green behind the ears, non-day one impactful players, But now you don't need that. Now you're not sitting there frantically on day one of like, oh my God, you know, Peter Woods is gone, Caleb Banks is gone, there is no more great interior pass rushers on the board, and you panic and overdraft somebody, or you don't get one at all. That's why you make this deal today. More importantly, though, Odighizuwa has a unique blend of size and length. We talked about this yesterday. He's 6'2". That's natural leverage against guards and centers. He's 280 pounds. That's a lighter defensive tackle that it shows up against the run for sure. Not a big run stuffer. He'll get washed away against double teams. However, he's not going to face double teams consistently on a line that has Nick Bosa and Michael, who Michael, despite not having sack numbers, was taking up Myles Garrett-esque levels of double teams pre-injury last year. And you plug in Odighizuwa, 6'2", 280 pounds, with 34.25-inch arms and 10.75-inch hands. He has unique size of being a shorter natural leverage defensive tackle, but has the arm length that surpasses some tackles. Like Osa Odighizuwa plays interior defensive tackle now for the San Francisco 49ers. He has longer arms than Will Campbell, who has naturally shorter arms for left tackle at the Patriots. Like, this is a long-armed, kind of awkwardly built freak of nature when it comes to the blend of size, length. That's exactly what you want. You want long, lengthy, lane-clogging, run lane-clogging, pass lane-clogging, ball batted down potential with the length Odighizuwa has, but maintaining that natural leverage as a pass rusher, which is why, as a rusher, the production has been off the charts. According to Pro Football Focus, Odighizuwa last year had 52 pressures. That was the sixth most against or for interior defensive linemen last season. Now, he had 3 sacks, which isn't a great number, I will admit to that, but hit a 13.6% pass rush win rate, and all of those numbers, like I said yesterday, are either equal or tied with Quinnen Williams, who was acquired by the Cowboys at the trade deadline for a first and second round pick. Now, I'm not saying he's better than Quinnen or as good as Quinnen. I'm just saying that goes more into the value San Francisco gets for a third round draft pick. He's putting up the exact same numbers for 1 year, mind you, like Quinnen Williams. That's impressive. Now, will that continue? I don't know. But while Odighizuwa may be a middling run blocker, which certainly separates him from guys like Williams, he has a 2.5% missed tackle rate. That's incredible for a player of his size and for the strengths that he has and the weakness of a run blocker that he is. To have a 2.5 missed tackle rate, that's really good. If you go into the Niners defensive tackles of recent history, that being just last year, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Alfred Collins, and CJ West, those 4 players that started playoff games the majority of the season last year for San Francisco on the interior had a combined 47 pressures. Odighizuwa, 52. The Niners essentially replaced the production of 4 players with 1. And more importantly here, Collins and West are young rookies last year. You replaced 2 vets that were giving you nothing of true value of upside in Davis and Elliott, who are now both gone, or at least one of them's gone in Tennessee, and one of them's now a free agent. In Davis, you have tripled, quadrupled their production in 1 player for a measly third-round draft pick. That's phenomenal value. You can't argue of, oh, this is a bad trade. No, this is not an overpay. And we'll get into more as to why when it comes to contracts and what that means and the value and the how long San Francisco's locked in to this deal with him. But there's reason to believe that while he outperformed 4 of San Francisco's defensive tackles last year, that he can get better. Because last year for the Dallas Cowboys, he was playing next to nobody until Quinnen Williams got there midseason. But if you go back just 2 years' time in 2024, when he was playing next to Micah Parsons, who now is playing next to Nick Bosa, elite level, double team worthy edge rushers that can get to the quarterback in a flash, his production shot up. He had 60 pressures, 8 more, 7 sacks, according to Pro Football Focus. That's 4 more, and a 15.1% pass rush win rate. That's 5% over the average. This is great value for a player who's not even 28 years old yet. This is awesome. And look, the Niners have been clamoring for a defensive tackle. They've been looking for the DeForest Buckner replacement. Now, I'm not saying that this is who Odighizuwa is. He's not DeForest Buckner 2.0. Don't get it twisted. He is not a great run defender. He can get washed out at times. When you're 280, you're going to lose some reps. You're a thinner defensive tackle, but that makes you quicker, faster, twitchier. It gives you more of that pass rush prowess that we have missed in San Francisco for a long time. It's what Javon Kinlaw couldn't bring to the table. It's what Hargrave got hurt and couldn't bring to the table. It's what they've been needing for a long time. And going back into his stats for a second, over the past 2 years, Odighizuwa has 50 pressures when lined up at defensive tackle. That is the 6th most in the NFL. In that same time span, the last 2 seasons, Niners defensive tackles rank 29th in the league with 89 pressures. Odighizuwa's 50 are more than twice any individual Niner in that period. Tell me how this is a bad deal for a 3rd-round draft pick you didn't even want them to keep anyways. I know you may have a hard time spelling his name. That should be the only issue with the deal. How do I spell Odighizuwa? You'll learn to spell Kyle Juszczyk. You'll learn to spell Odighizuwa. This is a great deal. Great deal. Phenomenal. Again, going into last year, again, 2025, Jordan Elliott, Kalia Davis, Alfred Collins, and CJ West, once again, San Francisco's 4 core interior defensive tackles, had 2.5 sacks, 9 QB hits, and 47 pressures in 969 pass rushing snaps. Nearly 1,000 pass rushing snaps, 2.5 sacks, 9 QB hits, 47 pressures. Odighizuwa, in only 420 pass rushing snaps, that's less than half of 969. He had 3.5 sacks, 23 QB hits, and 52 pressures. So in half the snaps, he had 1 more sack, he had 14 more QB hits, and he had 5 more pressures than 4 players. Again, in half the snaps. It's a no-brainer. And it's funny because we got the reports late last night when everyone's talking about Max Crosby this and Max Crosby that of, San Francisco, and we got into that too. But I told you, Odighizuwa, knowing San Francisco inquired about getting him from the Cowboys, I said, that's the deal you want to make. There's a bigger need at defensive tackle than there is getting Max Crosby for whatever the asking price may be, which now it seems like he's staying in Las Vegas. Crazy, I know. And you read the tea leaves of San Francisco's been wanting a defensive tackle for a long time and trying over and over again and missing for a DT. And 2 days ago, they were outbid by $1 million for John Franklin Myers. And what their asking price, what they were willing to pay, was $20 million. Funny enough, what does Odighizuwa make on average per year? $20 million. It's almost like they said, that guy's younger in Odighizuwa, and he's the exact price we were going to pay for a guy in John Franklin Myers. Let's take that money and let's move it over here. And it works out. They're not paying any more than they had already earmarked and budgeted for John Franklin Myers, now going to Odighizuwa. And it gets even better because he has a $16.75 million cap hit in 26. But unlike John Franklin Myers' contract with Tennessee, there is no guaranteed money on the deal past this season. None. Which can mean one of two things. It's a third-round draft pick you burned because Odighizuwa. Oh my God. Odighizuwa. Not Odighizuwa. Odighizuwa. You burned a third-round draft pick because he's not very good, right? He stinks. You lost. You burned that third-round draft pick, and we're sitting here like, oh, man, what a bust of a trade. What a mistake John Lynch made. But there's no guaranteed money. So you paid 1 year, $16.75 million, for 1 year for a player for a defensive tackle. And then if it doesn't work out, cut your losses. No harm done. It was a 1-year experiment, and you can say goodbye. Move along. That, to me, is like the ultimate deal to make of like, if this works out, $16.75 million on the cap. If he's great, you extend him, you lower his eventual contract and cap hits down the road. It gives you that kind of luxury of cutting or trading him or redoing his contract if he's great. And if he's bad, no harm lost. You don't lose anything. What'd you lose? You lost 1 third-round draft pick. Okay, you lost one last year, Nick Martin too, and Tydavis Price and Danny Gray. Shall I keep going? There is literally no pitfall in this deal. There's no long-term connection. You're not locked into a long-term deal. There is no long-term massive cap hit waiting for you down the road. Nope, none of it's there. This is a very similar deal, albeit lesser than Bryce Huff was. Last year, you traded basically nothing for Bryce Huff, and Philadelphia pays half the contract. And had everybody been healthy, you saw for 2 games, this is really going to work out. He looks like a great edge rusher opposite Bosa with the speed he has. This is the same thing. There are no ties past 2026. There's no money there, and if he plays great, you extend him, you lower his cap hit, and he's under the age of 30. We always talk about, they got to get younger. You got to get cheaper. Well, how do you do that and find great talent? How do you do that and try to find the best deals in place that aren't a draft pick in round 1 or 2? It's deals like this for Odighizuwa. He turns 28 this year, I think in August. And more importantly here, with youth comes durability. He's played 87 of 88 games, 84 of 85 games. He's missed 1 game. So he's played 80 games, basically, almost 90 games, and he's missed 1. And it happened in his rookie season like 5 years ago. The dude never misses time. Now, knock on wood, that may change with the San Francisco 49ers. For the love of God, somebody stretch them boys out there at Levi's. But he's under 30 years old. There's no long-term contractual value or contractual ties for a third-round draft pick, and he's durable as all get out, and he's productive. He's better than the 4 defensive tackles you put in place last year and started playoff games with. This is a no-brainer. Thumbs up, John Lynch. You cooked. For all the crap you get, and sometimes rightfully so, you've had a heck of an offseason so far. And I mean a really good offseason so far. I know some fans want, all the big deals, and they want all the players, and knowing what San Francisco is going to do this offseason, we're going to be targeted in our strategy. I think John Lynch is knocking it out of the park. Yes, are there some deals I would have made? Sure. I would have signed Jalen Hawkins and Elgton Jenkins. Those 2 deals, at least one of those deals, would have been good value in my opinion. That said, though, look at the additions so far. So they signed Mike Evans, fills that wide receiver need. They get Vidarian Lowe, a backup tackle that can play right or left tackle. Good value, fills a much-needed depth position behind Trent and Colton McKivitz. They go sign Brett Toth, who can be a guard, tackle, center, probably becomes your backup center when it's all said and done. But if not, he can play 3 different positions on the offensive line. And now you get Odighizuwa. You have your 3-tech defensive tackle in place. You've signed 2 starters at much-needed positions. Like, you couldn't leave free agency or the draft without those 2 things. Now they're already taken and kind of X'd out, checked off on your list before March 12th. Before the second day of the new year, you have 2 new starters and you have 2 new depth pieces. You also brought back Eddie Pinheiro and John Weeks. You've maintained your special teams core. Next is probably going to be Thomas Morstead. You re-signed Garrett Wallow. Today you brought back Patrick Taylor Jr. and Jake Tonges for depth and maybe even a starting role while Kittle's out. You also tendered Sam Okuayinonu contract to now you have the right to first refusal. So if he wants a deal elsewhere, you can match the offer or let him go. That's a good contract there. It's a good deal in place. And you've only lost 3 players. Kendrick Bourne, who, okay, you don't mind losing KB. You lost Jordan Elliott, who you replaced with Odighizuwa. Think of it that way. You lost Jordan Elliott and you got Odighizuwa in place. Yeah, what a massive upgrade. And then you lost Sky Moore, which that one's tough, but you can find return men out there for free all the time. That is a great free agent class. Now, it's not perfect. There is some concerns, some boomer busts there, but even going into the concerns of Mike Evans for a second, oh, he's older. He'll be, 32 going on 33. There was injuries last year. Odighizuwa has none of that. None of that. Like, this is the guy you want your team to acquire. And funny enough, it's always great when you see the team that you acquired the player from, their fans and media complaining of, why'd they do this? I don't understand. What are the Cowboys doing? Why'd you pay a guy for 1 year, then deal him the next? Why'd you pay your 26-year-old defensive tackle that can rush the passer like crazy and trade him away? Now, in their eyes, he was redundant, but the cap was kind of in flux and it may not have been, a good piece to keep in Dallas's eyes, but for San Francisco, feels a massive need. And you had the fan base in Dallas of like, what are we doing? We're going to miss this guy. This is a starting caliber 3-down player that is going to, if healthy and if all goes well, 1, get extended, I'm sure, by the Niners, but also 2, be a heck of a player next to what you're trying to establish as your next young core alongside Nick Bosa. Like, think about that. You in the last 2.5 years, 2 years or so, year and a half really, you've added Micah Williams, Alfred Collins, CJ West, and Odighizuwa, who were all under the age of 30, and right now the age 28, alongside Nick Bosa. The youth movement is happening. Now, it's happening in different ways, the draft and free agency, but this is how you marry those two components of, we got to fill some holes in free agency before the draft. Last year, you spent 3 draft picks on the defensive line. Well, now you're filling those roles, adding some money to that room in free agency to avoid having to draft more defensive linemen, especially on the interior, which Michael could be lumped in as an interior player, knowing he can play on the inside on third downs. Like, your third down pass rush looks phenomenal now. It's Bosa on one end, Odighizuwa next to him, so you have one guy on the end taking on double teams. You put the amazing pass rusher next to him inside. That'll free him up. Then you put Michael next to Odighizuwa, who's also taking up double teams, and you have Bryce Huff on the other end that is an amazing speed rusher on third down getting home. Like, that may not be the biggest names, but if that's on the field together for 15, 20 games next year, that's scary. That is a very competent, and if some guys grow into their roles, you add in the depth of eventually, hopefully, Sam Okuayinunu's back, Keon White's involved, Alfred Collins is there, you have CJ West, you can get more guys in the fray. Like, the Niners defensive line, if healthy, it might be kind of nasty in the best way possible. And you also have some connections with Odighizuwa, with Eberflus, who was Dallas's failed defensive coordinator last year, now in San Francisco. He has some comfortability in the room. But moving along to the next part of this, because we've talked about, you now have your 3 tech defensive linemen. You filled your X-wide receiver with Mike Evans. This changes the draft strategy. You don't walk in to pick 27 saying, oh God, we're desperate. We overdraft a couple guys and maybe they're busts. We're not sitting there because we know San Francisco drafts based off need. They never go BPA. And so if you can cross off more needs on your board, it dwindles down what I believe San Francisco will do. Because looking at their holes on their roster, if you fix defensive tackle and you fix wide receiver, at least the X position of the offense, well, and you get more into a draft team based on need more than BPA, what's the remaining holes there? I mean, ask yourself this. Is it left guard? Maybe. You want the offensive line fixed? Maybe. You want a safety? Okay. There might be a couple guys there late in round 1 that can get you a safety. You want that rangy coverage guy in the back end of your defense? We all know Raheem Morris loves rangy safeties that can move around. Look at Atlanta. Xavier Watts, Jesse Bates. He wants those rangy, versatile guys. Maybe that's in store for San Francisco. You want a linebacker? I wouldn't go round 1, but you want the guy next to Fred you can trust? Maybe. You want a cornerback that you think is better than Bernardo Green? Okay, now that's in play. You start to kind of look at other positions of need and say, okay, if you fix and you filled other holes, maybe you fix the offensive line finally. Maybe you go tackle. Maybe you go edge again, and you just load up on defense. That's what I would do. But if there's a guard there, you got Pregnon from Oregon, maybe that's an option. The Niners were like 7 Oregon games last year. I wonder why. You have the Eneman, the safety, also Oregon. Maybe he's an option. It's not as if San Francisco is not telling you, or at least guiding us as fans into what comes next. Now, free agency can still happen. They can restructure Bosa. I'm sure they will. They got to figure Trent out still. But as Niner fans, we're getting glimpses as to what April looks like. Mike Evans fills a need. Odighizuwa fills a need. They're getting depth offensive line in place behind their starters. They're doing things the smart way. Now, will it pay off in wins? We're not going to see until the year starts. But on paper, these are excellent moves San Francisco has made. And sure, we can sit back and say, well, I wanted that guy instead. And that's fine. Totally fair. I watched today, I was on Twitter, of like, oh, man, Jalen Hawkins, why didn't you get that dude? I love Jalen Hawkins. Cleavon Chason, oh man, goes to the Commanders. Are you kidding me? There are always going to be guys you want, you don't get. But the guys San Francisco has signed, I think these are excellent additions to the roster. That, especially Odighizuwa, who I just love the value of, and I love the production and who it's tied to, and you know the ceiling that still exists for a guy like that. But you know, for all you out there, they've been clamoring for offensive line and get a safety and get an edge. The Niners are closer to doing what you want them to do than they were yesterday. Now, they may not do that at all in April, and we're all like, dang it. But they are closer to doing exactly what you've been wanting them to do than they ever have been, in my opinion, at least in the last 2 years or so. You've been calling for offensive line help for years, get a safety for years. And, I mean, honestly, I'm leaning towards this being a safety. Now, it depends on who's there at pick 27, but it also gives you more versatility to kind of see what your options are. Because while you have filled some needs, you also did trade away a 3rd-round draft pick. You did lose one of your picks inside the top 100. Now you only got 2 of them. If I'm San Francisco, knowing I filled 2 needs, knowing that really once I get past pick about 18, 20, it all kind of muddies up and it's like these are all the same players and same ceilings, maybe they trade back and they get a 2nd-round draft pick and a 3rd in 2027 and maybe a 5th in 2026 or something along those lines of, you know, some good value. They move back 10 picks to 37, get more into that kind of, you know, early day 2 sweet spot, mid day 2 sweet spot, and they get 2 guys. And you're like, okay. And they get more value next year or later on in the draft this year. All that to say, getting Evans and now pairing him on the defensive side with Odighizuwa fills two of their massive needs this offseason. Now gives them more draft versatility, while also, still being able to make some small moves because Evans was cheap. Like, think about it this way, too. What the Colts paid for in Alec Pierce, $20.5 million, right? The Niners are going to pay around $30 million for an ex-wide receiver that is 32, mind you, but also for a 3-tech defensive tackle. $16 million cap hit this year for Odighizuwa, and a $14 million contract for 1 year of Mike Evans, and we'll see what the breakdown is once I get more of the details in the future. But $13 million or $30 million for 2 key starters is exactly what you want for San Francisco, trying to maneuver the cap, get a little younger, and get cheaper, and not be too expensive. Like the Brandon Aiyuk money went to Odighizuwa and Mike Evans in reality. That's a great bargain. That's a great deal. And again, you hope it works out. It has to result in wins, but this opens up not just the roster, doesn't just fill needs, but it opens up draft day versatility, and really it opens up more free agency too, because they also made some more moves. And I think they've done a lot of things right so far, and it's really hard to dislike what San Francisco has done through just 3 days of free agency in 2026. That said, we are half an hour into the show, so it's probably a good time to remind you, if you want to go to an NBA game, baseball is nearly here. USA advances in the World Baseball Classic. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Thank God for Italy. But also, the weather's getting warmer. The sundresses are going to be out. The Daisy Dukes, the tank tops, the muscular tops of the 1980s are back. The dudes are flashing thigh. And if you want to see it all in person, you better go to SeatGeek.com and use our promo code 49ersaccess, 49ERS, ACCESS at SeatGeek.com to save yourself $20 off your first purchase. Whether it's a sporting event or a concert, use that promo code and save yourself $20 off your purchase. Get a discount on me and help the show out in return. Moving along, though, with the show, the Niners also added, or I guess re-signed, if you will, a couple of players. One of them being running back Patrick Taylor Jr., which currently, the way things sit, he could probably be the RB4, the RB3 in the room, depending on how you view Isaac Guerrero. But this is a nice depth signing. I'm not going to go and give you this long exegetical dissertation on, what does Patrick Taylor Jr. bring to the table. He's a solid all-around, low ceiling, kind of a high floor, or kind of a mid-tier floor depth running back. He's a fine pass blocker. He's a fine running back. He's a fine receiver. It also gives you, going back to the, who fills the return man void, Taylor Jr. can also do that for the San Francisco 49ers. So a very nice, kind of underrated, small depth re-signing that actually may fill a role in 2026. But the big one, just before the buzzer sounded as to who San Francisco could tender this off-season as an RFA, a restricted free agent, they inked tight end Jake Tonges to a brand new deal over 2 years worth $8 million, including $5.5 million guaranteed. And once again, hard to dislike this move. It's a backup tight end. It kind of shores things up behind George Kittle. This also does make the Luke Farrell deal look worse, because you now have re-signed your third string tight end to be your second string tight end, after signing Farrell to be your second string tight end, who's now your third string tight end. So there is some ugliness that is involved, but good for Jake Tonges, and he played such a big role when Kittle missed time last year. I know he fumbled in the playoffs, and I get that, but besides that, he has improved so much as a run blocker, as a pass blocker. He gives them a baseline of production depending on Kittle's rehabilitation. So if Kittle's going to miss time, you at least know what you have in Tonges. He's a really good receiver. He has really good hands. Maybe not after the catch as much as during the catch, but that can be worked on. Ball security can be worked on with your technique of ball handling. But love this move for San Francisco. Give you some depth in place. Give you a legit number 2 tight end behind Kittle that showed a lot of great things the last couple months of the season and even during the early portions, because Kittle missed, from Seattle week 1, quarter 2 and on to about week, I think it was 6 or 7. And Tonges was a very big part of what they were doing. Caught really a surprising amount of touchdowns this year for San Francisco. So like the deal, like the move, with them paying him a nice chunk of change, $8 million, 5.5 guaranteed. You do wonder, maybe there is a chance of more involvement of him in the room now, though it seems like with Juwan Jennings being gone for certain, maybe they go back to a more legit 2 tight end kind of formations, and we'll see what they do. But I would love that. He can be a weapon as a receiver. And maybe there is that, Tonges can fill the Juwan Jennings role for us at times. I wouldn't hate that. You lose Juwan, who may get, 16 mil, 12 mil, still a free agent, mind you, so the door is not entirely closed on his return. But if Tonges becomes that guy, maybe you are putting out Farrell and Kittle and Tonges, or you're having Juszczyk and Kittle and Tonges, and you run some 13 personnel sometimes this year. That'd be fun. So, like the deal, it opens up some possible formation changes and a role change for him. But thumbs up for Tonges and a good deal for San Francisco. They did kind of end their midday window of the NFL transaction wire coming out by tendering Sam Okuayinonu a contract. And I'm not going to get too much into this, but I'll give you kind of what this means. So right now, San Francisco gave Okuayinonu a 1-year, $3.546 million contract tender. What that means is the 49ers have the right to first refusal. If somebody else, say the Falcons, say, we want Sam Okuayinonu, and they are going to give you $5 million for him, and they offer him $5 million, San Francisco can say, we'll give you $5 million, and they can match the offer and retain him. They can also say, have fun in Atlanta, or we're not paying you $5 million. It really, what this does is it establishes a kind of nice foundation of what he will cost you. He's going to at least get $3.5, $4-6 million this offseason for 1 year. But if he gets paid more, it just gives the Niners some protection of, we like Samo. We want to bring him back. We don't want to pay him too much money, but if somebody else does, we can at least up our deal and retain him in 2026. So that's all it means. They can say yes or no. They can kind of just match any deal or offer he gets and receives in free agency. But I don't think this also removes the possibility of an extension or a different deal being done. So they can say, hey, we'll give you a 2-year deal, give you some more kind of security on the roster, but we'll give you less money per year. So I don't think it removes the chance to extend him, but for 1 year, he's maxed, or kind of minimum, a $3.5 million player, whether it's in San Francisco or somewhere else. So a good deal there for San Francisco, kind of a smart, just, let's save our butts in case he leaves. However, if he does leave, they get nothing for him. This is not a second round tender or third round. This is a simply right of first refusal tender. So no compensation comes back San Francisco's way if he does leave. Moving along to 4 players that were non-tendered, that being edge rushers, Taron Jackson, Beal Jr., no surprise there. Both those guys aren't good. Don't see them getting a job unless it's kind of in the training camp practice squad area. They're not good. That said, they also non-tendered defensive tackle Kalia Davis and cornerback Chase Lucas. They can bring all these guys back. It just means they're not putting a minimum salary on them and aren't putting tenders on them. So San Francisco only tendered one player of the two possible, that being Okuayinonu. And I'm not shocked. That makes sense. There's no reason to tender guys like Davis, Beal Jr., Jackson Lucas. If they go, they go. If they stay, they stay. Two of these guys were basically non-rostered last year, and one of these guys was a depth special teamer. The other one was a starter, but you already replaced him, really, with Odighizuwa. So not shocking there. I also would not be surprised if Kalia Davis comes back for a year. They like him. They drafted him. He's a fine depth piece, but by all means, he should be behind Collins, West, and now Odighizuwa on the defensive tackle rotation. But that brings us to a much bigger discussion, because the new league year happened, and we all were out there being like, oh, here it comes. Oh, here's the day we've been waiting for a long time. We can tell that sucker Brandon Aiyuk, sayonara. See you later. Get out, get up, and goodbye. And then nothing happened. And we all said, wait a minute. Anytime now, San Francisco, when are we going to cut Brandon Aiyuk? Is it a post-June 1st? Is it a pre-June 1st? Doesn't matter. When will it happen? And we all said, is the clock broken? Is time frozen? We get bombed by Iran? Am I dead? Oh my God, like what's going on? And nothing happened. And, not to make light of what's happening in the country, mind you. So if that was offensive, I'm sorry. But still, a point where it's like, it was supposed to be the day we say goodbye to BA. And nothing happened. Then we got this from Adam Schefter on ESPN discussing the future of Brandon Aiyuk in San Francisco. And it is not what I think any of us expected to hear from one of the most trusted, albeit sometimes irresponsible, insiders in the NFL. So Schefter, what is the future of Brandon Aiyuk, and is there a chance he remains in San Francisco for the time being?
Well, first and foremost, I know it says that they're planning to release him, but I'd like to add on that they're not planning to release him anytime soon.
Okay.
They essentially have no guaranteed money left in his contract, so they can hold on to him for the time being. They could hold on to him in the draft and see if they could flip him for a pick at that point in time. They could hold on to him until June. They've paid him an awful lot of money. I don't think this is happening anytime soon, despite the report. And I think that they'll be holding on to him for a little while to see if there's any trade value at all. Washington does make a lot of sense. He played with Jaden Daniels in college. They're very close. Jaden Daniels, I'm sure, would love to play again with Brandon Aiyuk, but I don't get the sense that the 49ers are in any rush to move on from Brandon Aiyuk, even though we know eventually they will.
You hear that? You hear that? Isn't that special? Isn't that a taste of your own medicine? Isn't that just, I don't know. I'm not somebody that loves being petty, but I can tell you this. I like when the San Francisco 49ers are in this case. They're being petty. They're saying, you know what? We gave you a ton of money. We made ourselves look like idiots. We gave you everything you've ever wanted and more because you had an asking price we didn't want to meet. And we bit the bullet, didn't trade you. Shanahan, lost some calories in the cardio running up to Lynch's office, and you put them through hell afterwards. Short skate, getting injured, which wasn't his fault, but still. Bad production for the first 7 games of his post-extension tenure. Then after getting hurt, doesn't report, is causing problems, is from what I believe on vacation or in a different country or doing something I'm not supposed to be doing when he's supposed to be rehabbing. Doing everything wrong, basically, after making San Francisco fold, look like idiots, and be partly responsible for them having to contractually reset the money on the books. Like, that's how catastrophic the BA deal was. They had to reset the books because BA was a mistake. Now, Niners deserve a lot of fault in that mistake. They still did it, and they are part of the split of you made mistakes, and so did San Francisco. But what they're doing here is giving Aiyuk exactly what he didn't want. So Aiyuk loses his guaranteed money and probably a fit to or a scheme to get out of the contract. Get me out of here. I hate being here. I hate Kyle. I hate John. I hate Jed. I hate Prague. I don't want to be here. I hate it here. It's the worst thing ever. Although I'm getting bags of money and plenty of jewelry and I'm speeding past Levi's Stadium, I don't want to be here. Okay, fine. You don't want to be here? Well, guess what? We're going to make you wait. You don't get to pick where you want to go. I'm sure Aiyuk had this day circled on his calendar. Ooh, I'm going to be free from San Francisco. Ooh, I can't wait to go to Washington and sign up with Jaden Daniels, my boy, LSU, Arizona State. Ooh, that's who I wanted to be my quarterback the whole time. I'm on podcasts talking, that's my QB. I'm T.O. and that's my QB. I can't wait for the new year to begin. Ooh, here it comes. And San Francisco said, get close. Psych, you thought, and you're wrong. I can be petty too, bitch. That's exactly what this is. You want to cause us fits? You want to wear the wrong shorts to practice, make us lose money, reset our books? Well, guess what? Watch this. Watch this. San Francisco essentially told BA, sit on your hands and wait. Because you don't get to get what you want. You don't get to throw a tantrum and throw a fit and make us look stupid. Make us look like the village idiot to the entire league. Make a spectacle of our misfortune and then get what you want. And to that I say, good. I'm not often one to say, be petty, but in this case, good. Good. You want to go to Washington? You can wait. You want somebody else to pay you some money? They can also wait. In fact, according to Schefter on that clip, they're saying this may last until June. Because if San Francisco post June 1st designate cut him, then they have no reason to move him until June 1st. Because nothing changes. There's no guaranteed money there. If they plan to use the post June 1st cut on him, then they can hold off until June 1st. They can hold off till the draft. There's no new bonuses involved. There's no new guarantees involved. In fact, they can wait until the very last second, until 11:59 p.m. on June 1st, and bang, cut him. And they can make a team sign him in the beginning part of June with no OTAs, with no medical checks, with no training camp. And they can make Aiyuk essentially be behind the eight ball as he tries to get his career back under him. And I will say again, good. We'll never know, at least in the near future, what exactly transpired between these two parties, Aiyuk and San Francisco. And maybe San Francisco holds more blame than I'm giving them credit for. I don't think that's too far-fetched to believe. But from what we know now, this is Brandon Aiyuk's fault. At least 75% of this is. The majority of this is his fault. He got hurt. He messed up. They said, you gave us a window, we're going to take it. And now with Aiyuk seemingly ready to skip town and go to Washington, why would San Francisco let go of any leverage they have? You got to think. And look, this isn't a ploy for a first-round draft pick. This isn't a ploy for a second-round draft pick or a third-round draft pick. Heck, this isn't a ploy for a fourth-round draft pick. This is, oh my God, it's draft day, day 3 on Saturday morning. What team didn't get a receiver they really want? What team wants to take a chance? Now, nobody might bite. Who wants that contract? I don't know how that works with the voids and the guarantees that are all gone. No, I have no idea how that works. But there's a realistic possibility, albeit a slim one, that on day 3 of the draft for a 6th-round draft pick, someone says, we'll take him. And why not? If a team like the Commanders, if a team like the Patriots don't get A.J. Brown, and they have Romeo Dobbs, and they say, you know what? Let's get B.A. And you can get a 5th, a 6th, even a 7th-round draft pick, any kind of compensation for BA is worth it. San Francisco, albeit doesn't have too much leverage in this case over other teams, they have leverage over Brandon Aiyuk. And when draft day comes and goes on round 1 on Thursday, and on day 2 comes and goes, and some suckers out there like, oh my God, we don't have any weapons for a quarterback. Brandon Aiyuk, what do you want? I'm not saying it's going to happen. The odds are super slim. But it is in San Francisco's best interest to play things out. They lose nothing by doing this. Nothing. BA is not going to play for him anyways. Aiyuk will play for somebody else forever and never come back. But they lose no more money. It doesn't give them more cap because the cap they would save by cutting Aiyuk today, they don't get until June 1st anyways if they utilize that post-June 1st designation. This is one final middle finger of, oh, you want to play us? We can play a little bit too. Now, it isn't, hey, I gave you $30 million a year, now I'm going to do nothing for you kind of playing, but it's somewhat of a payback. And I'm not against it. In fact, I'm all for it. Good. It benefits San Francisco to do this. Just see. My wife and I are looking for a new home, and I told her I'd rather know all the options in front of me than half of them. Let's look at everything. Let's look at renting, buying. Let's look at every kind of home there is without an HOA. Don't tell me where I can park my car, you 65-year-old single mother of 2. This is my house. But no, like, you want to know every option, every possibility. This is San Francisco exploring their options. You want to do some due diligence? This is that due diligence, and I am 100% behind it. But tell me down below, what do you think of this? Could San Francisco find a trade partner? The BA saga was supposed to be over today around 1 o'clock, and we're still here. And it seems like it's not going to end at least until draft day number 3 in late April. Drop your thoughts down below on that. Also, tell me, what do you make of the Odighizuwa trade? Do you love it? Are you a little hesitant? Are you like Sterling? This was the deal. I'm happy we made it, and I'm so excited for the draft and what this changes for them going forward. What do you make of the Tonges extension and the retention of Patrick Taylor Jr.? And would you match a deal for Sam Okuayinonu? What's your limit? $5 million? $6 million? Or are you saying, no, 3.5 is good enough for me? And let's look ahead to tomorrow. And really that means today, because you're watching this and hearing this on Thursday. So on Thursday, who else is out there for the San Francisco 49ers to maybe sign to a contract? And shockingly, there are some names that I think can benefit them, not in a big way, but can have an impact. The first one, it's unlikely that is a trade for Jonathan Grenard. I would look out for Philadelphia and even the Seahawks on that one. That would suck either way, but those two teams feel like they are the two favorites in this case, So watch out for that tomorrow. I don't think San Francisco is involved in that in any way, but, we'll see. Maybe it happened right now. And checking Twitter, it didn't. So we're in the clear, at least for a little bit. But the other guys out there are Joey Bosa, who is Nick's brother, obviously. I wouldn't love it, but San Francisco. They just can't help themselves sometimes. Other names, though, include Jonathan Allen, who was cut by the Vikings today. They liked him last offseason. The Vikings got him. They just cut him maybe for like a year, and you rotate, him and Collins and West and Odighizuwa, and you just had this really upgraded, 4 defensive tackles and you draft somebody on, round 4, round 5, whatever it is this year, depending on what happens in the draft. Then there is some smaller names like DJ Wanham, Brady Christensen. You have Jack Gibbons, who was cut by the Patriots today. You have Jack Conklin, who was the Chiefs linebacker, albeit that seems like a no-go with Garrett Wallow back. Then you have some shocking names still out there. Juwan Jennings, still unsigned. Maybe a return. Maybe you go sign Juwan and you go draft Chris Bell and you say, we got a bunch of dudes at receiver now. Jacob Cowling, we have no expectations for you now. Deebo Samuel still out there. I know there are ties, there are rumors. We'll see what transpires, but he's still a free agent. There was a report by Matt Maiocco today saying, like, that doesn't seem like it's going to happen now because it doesn't make sense. That ship has sailed, which, good. But, Kyle, he has his guys. There are more names, though, not just ex-Niners out there. You have Al-Quadin Muhammad, a defensive lineman from the Lions. Dalvin Tomlinson could be an interior defensive tackle option for the 49ers. Then you have former Falcon Arnold Ebiketie, who I think would be the lone Falcon to join the San Francisco 49ers this year. So we'll see what happens there. And then finally, there is probably the bigger name still on the market. That is Jaquan Brisker. You watched Nick Cross sign today. Jalen Hawkins signed today. The next kind of big safety is Jaquan Brisker. Now, he and Mustafa are kind of similar in many ways, so maybe there is redundancy there, but, Raheem values safety. And if you don't want to go safety in the first round, maybe you sign Brisker to a 2-year, $10 million deal, 2-year, $8 million deal, and you find yourself kind of getting a bargain for a guy that does have high upside. But I am shocked he's still there. Usually when you're on day 3, you start to question why are guys still out there and available that aren't injured, that, do have schematic fits and aren't too expensive. That's kind of what we're doing now. But as we enter day 4, I gave you a handful of players. Amongst the other comments, I hope you're leaving now on the show. Who do you want to sign? San Francisco's already signed 4 players that are new to the roster. They've added a couple guys that were here last year, and now they have room for more. Now, I think they're around $19 million in cap space before the Odighizuwa deal, so we'll see how that looks, and we'll see what restructures they do in the near future. But if you could make one more signing this offseason, who would it be? Tell me down below in the comments who and why. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and to follow us on social media at 49ers_access is the X, or Twitter, 49ers.access is the Instagram, and that is day number 3 of NFL free agency. Niners are making moves. May not be the biggest name, but they are improving the roster and doing the right things. John Lynch, why did we ever doubt you? I know why. We were right to doubt you, but for right now, doing a good job. And hopefully it continues as the offseason progresses. But like, share, and subscribe. And as always, enjoy the rest of your week. Hopefully I'll talk to you soon. But my name is Sterling Bennett. And as always, stay faithful.